Hi, I'm Terry Kimball, President and CEO here at the Chandler Chamber, and I am so excited for this week's topic about building brand. A brand is a promise. Okay, so what am I promising? So trust is the main word. So I can't wait to introduce our new speakers for today. But first, I'd like to do a shout out to the City of Chandler Industrial Development Authority for helping to make these weekly seminars possible for our businesses. So let me introduce our great speakers for today. I have Mark Stewart with Concept to Completion. Mark has over 25 years of experience as a Fortune 50 leader. Through founding his own businesses, Mark has launched multiple brands from scratch and has either founded or co-founded 3 startups in electronics, sporting goods, consumer product goods industry. Mark has an intimate understanding of marketing in the modern age. Having experience with retailers like Target, Walgreens, Walmart, Canadian Tire, and Amazon, Mark can provide insight into common marketing and strategies and retail strategies. Mark has recently been appointed as the Vice Mayor of the City of Chandler, as well as he represents the Arizona Job Creators Network as the Arizona State Ambassador. So Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Terry.
In addition, I have Jillian Grammer. Jillian actually helps small businesses grow a strong online presence that targets audience who convert. She is committed to communicating a brand's unique value and story through organic and paid strategies. As a marketing content manager for Concept to Completion, she's responsible for internal and external marketing content and execution duties. She creates, executes, delivers marketing for Concept to Completion to clients, including but not limited to social media, email marketing, creative, design, blog, video development, content creation, Google AdWords, Facebook ads, just to name a few. And she can add lots more social media on that. So Jillian, thank you and welcome.
Thanks for having us.
So I'm going to turn my camera off because I'm going to let you guys take it from here and show us your slides. And I'm sure we're going to have lots of questions. So if anybody has questions, please put them in the chat and we will make sure that if we can't get to them all, we will make sure that Mark or Jillian reach out to you directly and make sure that they have that for you. So I will let you two from now on, take it away. Thank you.
Terry Kimball, thank you so much for the gracious introductions, and we really appreciate everything you're doing at the Chamber, as well as the all of your team helping our community get stronger every day as we pull out of this pandemic and we hit the ground running in 2021. These seminars, I can't tell you how valuable they are, not just for our community, but for my team, right? Some of the things that you guys are putting out have been tremendous. So we're here today to just share some stories and just to spread some ideas around about concepts around what branding is. It's a cliche term these days to own your brand or to be the best brand that you can, but we're going to tell you how to do that. And we're going to kind of give you some insight into what the consumer is expecting from brands. So brand is what people say when you're not around. And so we're going to flip through some slides here and talk about what is a brand. And sometimes talking about what is a brand means we might talk about what a brand isn't. So many people talk about, well, we need a new logo, or we need a new tagline, or we need a new website, or things like that. Those are bullets in an overall war, to use maybe a bad analogy. But what I'm getting at here is that when you're talking about your brand, you're talking about the essence of who you are as a company. You're talking about what people say about you when you're not in the room. And that's important to know about that. We've all been to a restaurant or to any small business that promises us something, or maybe even a product that we bought online, right? That's why brands are so important online these days. We bought something online that promises it's going to solve this problem, or it's going to fit a certain way, or it's going to look a certain way. And when you get it, you're like disappointed. Well, how does that make you feel about that brand name? It obviously puts a little chink in the armor. You add up enough of those chinks in the armor, and you can get in real trouble. So let's rewind here. It's not a logo, right? That's not your brand. It's not a tagline. It's not a website. It's not anything tangible that you're going to work on your visual presence. It's not 100% visual. What it is, in other words, though, we'll go to the next slide here.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, when I think of my favorite brands, I don't immediately think of their logos or their taglines. I think of how they make me feel, the atmosphere of their environment, all of things that aren't on here. Logo, tagline, website, tangible things. That's not what a brand is to me.
Jillian, you're so right. Go to the slide before that. So when I look at this logo, there's no name here, right? There's nothing that tells you what that is. If this is the first time you've ever seen it, you have no idea even that might even be a cup. But we all know what that is. That's Starbucks. And what does Starbucks deliver on? It delivers on the exact same product every single time you walk in the door. It's the same smell. It's the same look. Every store is the same across the world. When you walk in, there's a barista right there, all hyped up on caffeine, ready to take your order and super happy. The brand is the experience. It has nothing to do with coffee. It's the smell. It's the green. It's the other products that you can buy while you're in there. It's the communication one-on-one with a happy barista. I mean, you can add to that too, Jillian. How does it make you feel when you walk into a Starbucks?
Yeah, I think something that Starbucks has really nailed is the work environment that they're able to provide students and business owners, anyone who has work to do. They know that they can go to Starbucks and get some work done, and they know when they walk in how they expect how the baristas will act, what atmosphere they expect. They know they're going to get the same drink every single time because they're so consistent on it. So I think Starbucks has really nailed their brand promise, and they deliver it time after time.
And you make a really good point. And thanks for always triggering these great ideas, because their internal brand within the corporate company of Starbucks has a theme, right? Their people believe in their mission and their vision, right? They believe that Starbucks is there to create a difference in the world, and they're going to do that one coffee cup at a time with the people that they interact with. That's why there's no other, nobody buys food for McDonald's for the person behind them. That happens at Starbucks. So their brand has transcended their own company and moved into being part of people's brands. It's a remarkable story. And when they fall down and when they mess up, they make it right. And that's the great thing about Starbucks. And so that's why you'll pay $4 for a cup of coffee. So what is a brand? A brand is a promise. You need to ask yourself and your stakeholders what that brand is. And it's important to not only your current stakeholders, but future consumers of your brand, because people don't buy the products anymore. They buy the companies that make the products. They buy the values for what you represent. And it can be simple, right? You can be a mom and pop shop and still create a story about your business that makes sense, that people want to connect with. And when they do connect with it, they feel like they're making a difference, right? And those stories are all over channel. We have Sibley's West right downtown, right? They give us a peek into their own business. They do videos. They let you know who they are. They buy Arizona only. They're building a brand that's part of the community. I think it's a remarkable story. And there are hundreds and thousands of those just in the East Valley. What do you think, Jillian, sorry.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the first thing that's coming to my mind of who really has a great brand and brand promise is Chick-fil-A and their customer service. That is just something that they're known for, and that all of their employees embody. Exactly that you're going to get a pleasant conversation, a pleasant person when you go there. So I think that they've really nailed it there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So let's talk a little bit more about brand promise. A brand promise should embody the vision and mission of your company. Your brand promise is an externally focused sort of aura about who you are that ties into your vision and mission strategy. It captures your values, your behaviors are a outward expression of those values. It's about your products and services. It's about the way you run your operations internally so that your employees exude your brand excellence and so that they believe in your vision and mission. And so it involves all of your external and internal communications. At the end of the day, your brand promise is the heart of who you are. And there's so many things that factor into it, but it starts at the top. So if you're a company leader or if you're a department leader, there are certain things that you need to know about the company that you work for or the company that you are, and you need to really dive into those and make sure that your mission and your vision statements align with your company values and your personal values, right? You want to be a good company or a community partner. You want to be somebody that people can trust. And when you start putting that into your brand, people will start saying your brand name with a lot of love, and they'll start sharing your story, and then you create advocates for your brand, and that's where we ultimately want to be. So brand promise and visual representation. So your vision and mission statements and what those overlap with one another. So your vision statement, we've done these vision and mission workshops before. About a year ago, we did one of these. I believe we were at one of the local co-working spaces, and we talked about a vision statement is making a formal statement of why you do what you do, right? So what's the change that you want to make in the world? And a formal statement for your mission is, how do you get there, right? So creating a vision statement and creating a mission statement will tie you into what your brand promise is. So one will extend internally and one will extend externally. So your brand promise, and write this down if you're taking notes, and we'll send this out after. It's the unique, enduring idea behind a brand's purpose. It's the foundational value the brand commits to delivering to its customers, not only externally, but internally. And what you want to do is exude that personality. You want to find 3 to 7 traits that personify what your brand are, and you want to repeat those to your employees. You want to repeat those to yourself. You might even want to put a plaque up of your values somewhere in your break room or something like that, so people are constantly reminded of what your brand promise is to the consumers out there. Sorry, my light went off there. So this ties into your brand positioning, right? It's the extension of the brand. It's the promise to your audience through different offerings. So you know what your audience is. It's your target set of customers. And then your offerings are the manifestation of the promise in the form of product and services. So this slide we could talk about for hours. I know, Jillian, do you have any thoughts about it?
I think this just gives kind of a better visual representation of how it all ties in together. It's all important aspects, but it all is separate, I guess. So your vision and mission, that's something that's really, like Mark mentioned, internal, something for your internal company and business to, it's really, it's for them. It's to keep on track with what you want to do, how you want to do it. And that's something that the team keeps in mind. That brand promise is really for the consumers and the consumer journey. And I think those are the difference between those two.
Yeah, and I think it's also very important to remember this, that if your goal is to make money and that is your primary purpose, you're going to lose. You're probably going to miss your brand. You're probably going to miss your brand promise. Income and profitability and all those things which keep people employed and help you make the change in the world that you're thinking about as it relates to your vision, those are symptoms of fulfilling your brand promise, which is and these can happen in restaurants, right? Let's say, for example, you're the Distillery, right? That's a brand new restaurant in downtown Chandler. We love it, right? Their food is unique. It is on point every time we have it. The beer and the sodas are cold. There's always going to be music and there's going to be happy employees, and they're delivering the same consistent brand promise every time. You know what I want to do when I go in there? I want to forget about what's going on. I want to feel safe and secure and know that I'm going to get good food, good service, and enjoy the company that I'm with and have somebody help me do that. Distillery is delivering on that promise every single minute of every single day. So, so that takes us to who's failed on their promise. And so Jillian kind of put this together for me, and I love it. But if you remember a few years ago when Ford came out with quality as job one, and Ford spent a ton of money in advertising, trying to tell people what their brand was, and ultimately they failed because their cars were breaking down left and right. There were recalls, and so what ended up happening is the consumer themselves gave it their own brand promise, and they called it "Found on the Roadside Broken," which is a kiss of death. Now Ford has been able to recover since then because they put the time and they spent the money to start delivering on the brand promise, which was a affordable and reliable vehicle that does the job that it's expected to do. AT&T has failed on their brand promise. We know some utilities and some, not necessarily in the Phoenix market, but in other Phoenix area or in other areas that have failed on their brand promise, which is customer service, right? AT&T promised that they would deliver extraordinary experience that customers deserve, but unfortunately they didn't, right? They promised slow internet speeds. They promised long wait times on the phone. They delivered long wait times on the phone, and a number of different things. So what ends up happening when companies break their promises is customers are disappointed, they feel disconnected, and they feel lied to. And they learn not to trust that brand. And ultimately, you know, if you're AT&T, you kind of have a captured audience. You can go to Verizon or you can go to somebody else like that. But for the most part, when you're a captured audience, you're just waiting for the opportunity to leave that brand. And it's just waiting in the wings. So as soon as something else comes along that's better, you're going to jump to it, right? And so I look at companies like Tesla and their brands, right? Tesla's not a car company. Tesla's mission is to create safer energy solutions for the world. And so they just happen to do it in a vehicle, which vehicles tend to put out the most carbon and things like that. But they're ultimately an energy company. They're an energy storage company. And so when you understand that about their brand and their brand promise, it's amazing. I will tell you one other story that you all are familiar with Waymo. I just did an interview with Waymo with two reporters from Paris, right? And they're just fascinated that we have driverless vehicles on our car. And we literally got into a Waymo with no driver and took it from Price Corridor all the way up to the mall, and they were flipping out, and I kind of was too. But what I can tell you about Waymo is delivering on a brand promise of safety. Their goal is not to be a driverless vehicle company. Their goal as a company is to create safer roads and to create safer communities. It was the only reason that Chandler partnered with them, is because part of their vision is to create a safer world. And so when that's part of their promise and they're doing their best to deliver on that, they're a trustworthy brand and they're delivering on their promise. We'll go to the next slide. Jay, you got any other comments about that?
I don't think so, but let's go back one slide and let's just do the successful brands real quick.
Okay. Did I miss those?
Yeah, I think I might have messed up sliding them, but
no, you know what? I'm looking at the PDF and not your train. So
okay.
Listen, we know who makes the mistakes here. It's always me. So
You're good.
All right. So can you take this one, Jay, or do you want me to run it? I got it pulled up. Successful brands. So we went out of order, but it'll make sense. The successful brands are, I thought we were out of order, but I was just
going with it.
Yeah, just roll with it. So a brand promise to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. Nike. Coca-Cola to refresh the world, to inspire moments of optimism and uplift, to create value and to make a difference. And then Starbucks, to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. So those don't talk about products. They talk about how it makes you feel, and it talks about the change they want to make in the world. Those are the essence of vision statements as well, and they put that into their brand promise. I just absolutely love it.
Okay. So how a brand can fall short on their brand promise. We're going to go over 7 ways that brands often fail at keeping their brand promise. But first, I'd like to mention this statistic right here. 38% of consumers who experience a broken promise will soon switch shortly after. So obviously this just depends person to person, how many times you're willing to put up with a brand that continues to break their promise. But a study I was looking at earlier today showed that 62% of consumers who encountered a broken promise from a company say that the company broke multiple promises to them. Actually, 32% responded twice, and 21% said 3 to 5 broke that brand promise. And a different study showed that 1/3 say that overpromising is just something brands do. So that just really shows how often brands don't deliver on their promise. So how are these brands breaking their promise? Number 1, the promise was never kept. Essentially, the brand just didn't do what they said they would. And a common problem here is that companies often talk themselves into believing that their brand can do more than they're capable of. If you're a brand and you say, oh, our brand promise is we're going to inspire people to change the world with world peace, like that's pretty unrealistic. It's not going to happen. So I think create more realistic brand promises so that they are able to be kept. Number 2, the promise wasn't delivered in a way that the buyers expected. So the brand's view of what was expected was different from what the consumers understood it to be. Definitely a miscommunication of brand messaging there. Number, what are we on? 3, 3. The promise came with too many conditions. The promise is kept here, but the consumers face what they're considered to be unacceptable or unexpected hurdles to qualify. I think that's something that just personally annoys me with a brand. Like if they're saying there's free shipping on this product, but you have to put in your email address, and then you have to verify it with your phone number, and then you have to, it's like, okay, you're asking for like way too much. You said you were going to do free shipping, just offer that. So number 4, there was a significant delay in fulfilling the promise. So plain and simple here, things just took too long to deliver and the consumer became unsatisfied. Number 5, the promise was only ever a hope. So kind of going back to number 1 here, the brand mistook a dream for a promise. Number 6, the promise was what they expected already, and consumers quickly identified this as lowballing them. And lastly, the promise was surpassed by competitors. So not necessarily a fail here, but your brand promise didn't resonate well enough with the consumer. Your promise, which may have been attractive at one point, falls flat because a competitor offers or appears to offer more. All right, so these statistics here prove the importance of a brand promise. So 86% of consumers say that authenticity is a key factor when deciding what brands they like and support. 81% of consumers say that they need to be able to trust the brand in order to buy from them. Consistent presentation of a brand have seen to increase revenue by 33%. 66% of consumers say that transparency is one of the most attractive qualities in a brand. 77% of consumers buy from brands who share the same values as they do. So these statistics are meant to really emphasize the importance of keeping your brand promise and how the consumer feels and determines which company to do business with. And I love this little quote down here: your brand is your chance to tell your consumers a story, your story. So I'm going to go back to the 77% of consumers, let's see what this says, buy from brands who share the same values as they do. It's important as a brand to showcase not only who you are, but what you stand for, the change you want to make in others' lives or even the world, because this will align you with the right audience. All right. 5 building blocks to an effective brand promise. Number 1, your brand should be simple. It should be no longer, or your brand promise, sorry, should be simple. It should be no longer than a sentence or 2. Remember, it is different than your mission statement. And it should combine the catchiness of a tagline and reinforce with the essence of the company's mission. Number 2, credible. A brand promise should be credible. If the customer experience doesn't match the brand promise, the value of your brand is automatically weakened. So essentially deliver what you say you're going to deliver. Number 3, a brand promise is different. It shouldn't sound too similar to your competitors, and actually it should make you stand out against them. Number 4, a brand promise is memorable. It should be memorable enough that your employees and stakeholders embrace it during every customer interaction. And then number 5, a brand promise is inspiring. People in general will act when they feel an emotional connection to a person, product, or company. And a great example here is Apple's promise of think different. Alrighty, last slide here. We're going to go over a couple different ways to execute your brand promise. So the 3 main pillars here are measure, monitor, and then train and engage. So measure. Create specific goals or objectives that can be used to track the achievement of your brand promise. The general perspective, this could be time, emotion, quality, savings, distance. This could also be like repeated purchases, customer satisfaction, positive online reviews. And if you're not able to measure these goals internally, an easy way to find these answers out is by conducting a survey. So you can just simply ask your customers, how would you rate our customer service on a scale of 1 to 5, if that's one of your things that you're promising in your brand promise.
Can I interject right there? On these surveys, and I don't see this enough, and I should see this, and it sounds hokey, but it's real, and it can really help you connect with your customers. Let them know why you're surveying them. Let them know why you're doing it. So you put in the survey, hey, we want to find out what you like about us, so we can be the best, the best restaurant to serve you the best we can. Tell us what you love and tell us what you hate, so we can be the best we can be. Be upfront and be authentic and be real with them, and then be ready, right? Be ready, because they're going to tell you exactly what they think about your French fries, or exactly what they think about, the way your store is laid out, or whatever that may be. You may be absolutely pleasantly surprised that everything about your brand they love, and you can accentuate that and let your internal consumers know about that as well. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just scared to ask, but it's only going to help you in the end improve. So I'd really recommend just doing like a quick customer or employee survey. Number 2, here we have monitor. So keep regular tabs on how well you deliver your brand promise, and create standards that operationalize it. Whew, that was a hard word. So if your brand promise has to deal with your great response time, make it a policy in your business to have your employees write down the response time every single time a customer inquires or complains. Number 3, train and engage. So your brand promise is really only as strong as the people who are delivering it. So it's essential that everyone in your organization has a clear understanding of the brand promise that they need to be delivering. Okay.
Great job. Great job. So, in a nutshell, there's a lot to digest there, but honestly, it's simple. There's really just a couple of things that you need to keep in mind. One is, make sure you find out what your brand promise is externally. If you need to hire a firm to do that, or you need to put out survey cards, go out and actively search for what people are saying about you when you're not around, and ask for anonymous reviews. Trust me, people give enough on Google. Wouldn't you rather see them not in public and be able to address those immediately? So go out and find out what those are. That's a really good action item. And I think another thing to be aware of is that if you just think about what's just recently happened, sorry, my light went off again, what recently happened here in the past year, and we had a client that we have made an about face on what their brand messaging was going to be. Their brand promise turned into a safety promise, right? I think everybody's did to a certain degree. Any customer facing business had to change their brand messaging to say that we're safe, right? Because that aligned with values that were important to the consumers that were coming into their restaurant or their store. So those are things that you have to be able to turn on a dime and consistently evaluate what your brand is and what you're telling consumers you are. And like I said at the very beginning of this, a brand is what people say when you're not around. So go out and find out what they're saying when you're not around, and then make the changes. If you're really committed to winning, make those changes. And the last thing I want to share with you, and this is something that we're all thinking about business right now, be conscious of your personal brand. If you're a CEO or if you're a business leader, be conscious of the brand that you put out on social media. Be upfront, let people know who you are so they can make a personal connection with your business. It doesn't matter who you are. Be authentic as you can and let people know that you're accessible. That's the key to today's business world, is having accessibility to businesses and the people that lead them. So if you need any help with that, that's something that C2C does. We do personal brand coaching and things like that for LinkedIn and other things. But it is important these days, and we certainly count on that. So Jillian, do you have any final thoughts?
I think at the end of the day, just deliver what you say you're going to deliver to your consumers.
Absolutely right. Absolutely.
Well, I've got some questions for you that have come in. When talking, and this one is from me. So there are certain brands that have done a really good job at branding. So for instance, Band-Aids. I grew up they were called Band-Aids. They're really adhesive bandages.
Yeah.
So when you take a look at it, they've really done a great job of overall branding that, because same thing with like Tylenol or acetaminophen. And so people, that's how they refer to it. So those are really good brand components too, as well.
It's certainly
You mentioned safety promises, and that was one of the questions that came up, especially now. Should everybody have some type of safety promise so that your customers feel comfortable in coming and dealing with you?
I'll take this first, and Jillian, you can add some color commentary to the end. But yeah, there's no doubt, you need to be telling people that your location is safe, not only with signage on your door, but you need to be letting people know that on your social media channels as well. Make a commitment to that and then deliver. If it is important for you to, there's 30% of consumers out there that are still nervous about going into restaurants and going into stores. And for our economy to recover here in the East Valley, we need all 100% of people to be taking part in the economy again. So tell your brand story as it relates to safety and get that word out that you're doing some great things.
Yeah, I think it's so important with what's going on right now. And especially if you're in the health and medical field, that is 100% expected that you're delivering safety to your consumers. But I would say, like I had mentioned earlier, if you say you're going to do it, make sure you're doing it, because I've seen so many times, like on Facebook and Yelp, that these brands are saying, oh, we're wiping down everything, or we're doing this, and then they're not actually doing it. And then consumers are calling them out. So that's just something to keep in mind.
You got to walk the walk and talk the talk.
Amen.
So I have another question that's come in. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between a brand promise versus a slogan or a tagline?
Jay, you want to take a first stab at it, or you want me to go? Go ahead.
I can start. So I think that a brand promise is, they kind of are similar, and I think you can kind of use them interchangeably, but I think the promise is more, like we had mentioned earlier, like the change you want to make in the world. And a tagline, slogan, that's something that's just more like catchy and fun, I would say, for people to remember.
Yeah, the slogan can capture some of your brand promise and some of your vision. It certainly can, but it's a more whimsical and fun way for people to connect with your brand. You're trying to trigger sort of a rhythm, sort of 3-syllable rhythm of who you might be and who you claim to be. So I can't think of any really good slogans off the top of my head right now, but they're important, but they're very minimal as it relates to, especially with all of the visual cues that we have today, because we're in these things 24/7. You want to create visual cues that connect people with your brand.
Well, I think a good example of a tagline versus a brand promise was Nike. Their tagline is "Just Do It," but we saw earlier that their brand promise is a little bit longer and says that they want to inspire athletes or whatever it said. So those two are different there.
And the other thing about a slogan is it can change, right? As times change or as it gets tired, it's sort of like it's a slight rebrand, if you will. You're trying to take somebody's eyeballs or their mental, or the way they think about you, and into a different direction.
Yeah. You started off with that one slide about vision and mission. And I think that this is so important, especially now. And in fact, when we moved into our new space, we were really committed to what our mission and vision were. And so we actually, when you walk in our front door, our mission is boom, right there in big vinyl letters right on the wall. We also started that with our board members on the backs of their tent cards for their names at meetings. We had that mission and vision right there. Our staff knows that, so that we continue to reinforce that. And so that becomes really what we're all about. So I think I love that slide that you put up on that.
And just because everybody's dying to know right now, the vision statement for Chandler Chamber is absolutely perfect. Chandler Chamber of Commerce will be acclaimed as a leader and a catalyst to facilitate business prosperity and foster a premier community. See, it transcends the business. It's more about everybody else, and that's what people are expecting today. And for the Chamber to execute that mission, the Chandler Chamber will support businesses in our community, providing vital programs and services that attract and retain business while embracing our diversity, right? So that is the actual mission of the Chamber, to execute the vision statement, which is to foster a premier community through the business community.
And it's interesting because as we've been going through this whole process, and then even with our about our diversity in our community, and I've said this, you've heard me say this on different calls in seminars or webinars, that it's not just a one-time program. This is a part of our culture, and this is who we are. And I think that that says a lot about Chandler and our diverse communities. So lots of questions. I don't know. I'm running short on time, and I apologize to those of you if we have not gotten to your question. I will get those to Mark and Jillian, and I will have them reach out to you directly for that. So thank you. Jillian and Mark, I just want to thank you for again today and always being on top of things. Next week, we have Jim Pipper with the SBA and Amber Cordoba with Chicos por la Causa, everything you need to know about the new round of PPP funding. They're going to talk about that. And there is money out there. And then we'll get an update also on the I Choose Chandler program. I know that that one is coming to an end shortly. You have till February 7th. So please apply on that. Lots of tools in that are out there for your business. And again, Mark and Jillian, thank you. I can't wait to hear your next presentation. I always come away with a ton of questions and ideas. So thank you for inspiring us.
We're grateful for all you guys are doing. Let's keep it up, and let's get out of this thing roaring.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.